Hello and welcome to Niaga Spotlight with me, Tamina Kausji. Niaga Spotlight goes through the week in business and future affairs. Market watch, industries, analysis and insights. We've got you covered right here on Niaga Spotlight. Well, today on future affairs, we're looking at a very timely and interesting topic, which is financial inclusion via innovative fintech. Now, it's actually very interesting to note that, did you know, 12% of Malaysians, that is roughly around 7 million Malaysians, and primarily in rural areas, are considered to be unbanked. That basically means they have zero or extremely limited access to financial services. Now, put that in mind with the fact that Malaysia has also doubled, tripled, quadrupled its digital economy, all the way from 800 billion in 2021. This is of course due to the fast growth rate of mobile transactions, Ewallets and etc. that have become so commonplace. It's really important to now focus on how to better serve underserved communities. Now, the underserved could even make up inclusion gaps in finance when it comes to women, gig workers, and of course lower income earners. To discuss this very vibrant and interesting topic, today we have joining us in the studios on Niaga Spotlight none other than Nisa Ismail, who is the CEO of Sedania Salam Capital Sendirian Berhad, SASC, speaking about, of course, the latest developments in inclusive fintech. Nisa, thank you so much for making time to join us. Selamat Hari Raya, firstly.
Thank you so much for having me, Tamina, and Selamat Hari Raya to you and Astro.
Yes. Fantastic. All right, so Nisa, let's get started off by you telling us a little bit about your experiences in the fintech sector. You come with an extremely diverse and at the same time very targeted portfolio for turning around industries and sectors, right?
Sure. Thanks, Tamina. Okay, I come from a background, I'm a lawyer by profession, but that shows my age now. About 25 years ago, I was always already in a .com industry. So that's a bit of a start for the whole e-commerce industry. But fast forward, I started this fintech for the last 7-8 years. But at that time, 8 or 10 years ago, fintech has always been seen as like a disruptor, you know.
Very true.
Yeah, very true as a disruptor. But I think towards the years, most of the FSI and conglomerates are seeing us as a collaborators. Why I'm saying collaborators is that from my experience in Sedania Salam, where we do Islamic banking, we actually pioneer the whole digital Islamic financial services, whereby we encourage conglomerates to offer micro Islamic financing services to their customer base, which I will explain to you later on the whole ecosystem when we are part of the more interesting topic. So when in that business, my experience here is that customers, especially when it comes to financial services, especially when it comes to financing or lending, they require fast services. That means no longer the days where you apply for your financing, for example, personal financing, you will get about 2 to 3 weeks of answers. Now, consumers are looking for instant application, instant approval, and instant disbursement to their bank account, or now even more so to their e-wallets. Yeah. So we are seeing an evolution of this whole process of consumerism. Consumer asking what they want. Consumer is demanding that they want to have an instant experience in the financial services. So no longer the days of their waiting, going to the FSI, getting the forms in. Well, some of the FSI do still have the form, but you can actually digitalize that and waiting for maybe about 2 to 3 weeks for their answers. But what if you need an emergency cash? Those 2 to 3 weeks doesn't work anymore. And
at the same time, I think even 48 to 72 hours is considered to be fairly long. People would choose the 24-hour turnaround.
People would choose for 15 minutes now. And I can share you an example of how a selective ecosystem requires that 15 minutes or less than about 10 minutes of instant application and approval. So I think we are looking about consumerism here, what the customers want, and the customer experience when it comes to addressing financial services and them having to have that financial accessibility as well to make it as financial inclusion.
Exactly. So financial accessibility is so closely tied in with financial inclusion, and arguably in the interest of trying to make this a little bit more mass market. What happened last December was pretty interesting. The current Madani administration, they successfully disbursed 100 ringgit e-wallet assistance to Malaysians with a cumulative total income of less than 100,000 ringgit. Initiatives such as these, Nisa, what is your opinion on them and how it's been executed so far?
I believe it's a very good initiative by the government to encourage the use of e-wallet. But having said that, all this started during the COVID initiative.
Very true, very true.
Whereby pre-COVID, cash is king. At that time, I mean, e-wallets are starting to come. But I think just after COVID era, the accessibility of cash accessibility is very important to which touch points. So e-wallet become the favorable touch point for them to receive and send cash, online cash.
That's right.
So I think with the Madani distribution, I believe it's really good. But I think we have to look into beyond that. It's not just about e-wallets or payments. It's all about understanding the usage of the your money in your e-wallet through a online personal financial management. How do you want to manage your 100 or 5,000 ringgit in your e-wallets? That's very important too.
I think it's not just about building the mentality that you receive perhaps the handouts, which are of course necessary for those from the B40, the lower B60, but it's about how you can then perhaps grow that, right?
Yes, this is where the educational awareness comes in when it comes to how to handle your money well, how to handle the investment well. So that actually is good initiative that it will start actually at the age of 18 and above, especially for students and for university students. But they need to know how they want to make their financial stretch longer. The longevity of the financial is very important too.
So now when we're looking at moving from a cash-heavy economy into one that is cash-light, so arguably I think we've just finished, of course, the Ramadan and the first part of the Hari Raya Idul Fitri period, it's become so common that you go up to any kind of a retailer. They could be a small gerai in a pasar that you're going to, they could be within a shopping complex that is modern, etc., in the upper end market, and everyone's going to have that QR code.
Of course,
right? However, let's talk about making this last frontier of commercialization, consumerism also equally available outside of the Klang Valley.
Of course. I mean, we've come into a situation, I mean, from my experience, some of the programs that we have done with some of our clients, conglomerate clients, we call it ecosystems. So respective of our clients have their own ecosystem. It can be a food delivery services, it can be an e-hailing services, which covers the B40 segment outside of the urban segment. It can be as East Coast or West Malaysia, or at the especially for the fisheries industry as well. How do you actually manage their cash, especially in terms of cash distribution? So I believe from the look of it, everybody will have a smartphone, right? Smartphone development in Malaysia has actually transcended so fast, and we are right now is equivalently the same as most of the developed countries. But what do they do with the smartphone? This is where the financial inclusion is very important on the smartphone, and this is where I'm sure the B40 segment has a basic smartphone. But how about the infrastructure developing? How about the infrastructure to support the smartphone? That's another thing, so that they can have the financial accessibility and it's enabled. So from the experience that I've got, some of this ecosystem, we have actually reached out to the rural parts. We have reached out to the B40 segments part for them to actually use this cashless transaction, for them to actually get the funding as well through their e-wallet securely. I think we have seen that. This was a problem probably before COVID era, where people are finding it hard to get money on their bank account. If they're living about 100 miles away from their bank, they probably have to drive 200 kilometers, check at the ATM. Well, what if they have a capacity on their app that they can actually check that the money is already in the account without driving out? So I think we are seeing that evolution already. Yeah,
the mentality is shifting quite
quickly because I think with the smartphone, with the super app, accessibility, I think with the whole components of the ecosystem that's supporting this group of ecosystem, I think it can work and it will work because I have seen it before for the last 2 years or so. I mean, since from 2022 till now. So I think it is getting there, and I think it will evolve.
So speaking about evolving, Nisa, now let's look at the fact that, of course, the pandemic was that hard stop, which forced especially financial systems to really become modified
to reset.
Yeah, to reset, right?
Yeah.
However, though, as we are quite firmly in pretty much a post-pandemic economic recovery, that era is now what we're living through.
Yes.
Do you reckon that on the way to 2030, which is just a short 5-6 years away, are innovations going to slow down, or are we going to have to look at picking up the slack? Since it may not be that essential anymore, especially for the marginalized to be online, perhaps they will have to resort to just, going back to what limited access they have for finance.
I always believe in leveraging on the current situation. You can't expect you have to wait for the entire 5G rollout to actually do a lot of things.
Fair enough.
I think currently with LTE and 4G, I think it's still okay, it's still accessible. I think it's a matter of the ecosystem to deliver the key components to enable them to have the accessibility is very important. So in terms of infrastructure, in terms of security, in terms of creating the consumer demand as well. I want to talk a little bit about especially the small SME.
Sure, let's talk about the MSMEs, the micro SME.
The micro SME.
Sure.
They are the ones who are really in need of this. And regardless whether they want to wait for 4G or 5G or whatsoever, they still need to have the financial accessibility and the support when it comes to marketing and sales. So I think that is more important because they are outside of urban cities, you know. So I think to address that, I believe there are few government initiatives doing that, and also corporate doing that. Through my experience, some of the conglomerates is actually helping the micro SMEs to offer mom and pop shop financing, and I'm seeing some of them doing it instantly, get an instant application, instant approval, instant disbursement straight to the Ewallets, and they can survive this because in order to buy like resources, for example, rice, to things for them to do their nasi lemak business, how are they going to roll their funds? So with these instances, I'm seeing it is happening now, and these are all in rural areas. The ability to have the access in an instant seconds. And I'm seeing this when I see some of the data.
Sure. Most
of the application is done after midnight.
Ah, I see. Well, I think that actually speaks to the fact that these are extremely hardworking folks who perhaps are only able to look at other concerns after they've wrapped up the day's business, settled everything for the next day, which starts early after midnight.
In a normal traditional conventional, there's no way you can do that after midnight.
Sure.
You got to do it after
9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
But now accessibility after midnight, where they have a clear head and they see, they look at their finances, what do they need to roll their money. So that's where they can do the instant application approval all within midnight. So I'm seeing my business actually works better after 12 o'clock, midnight.
So best for night owls. Nisa, I think that's such an interesting insight. I just want to dig a little bit deeper on that point. You mentioned that you're noticing most of the applications are after midnight. Are you noticing any particular age demographic?
You'll be surprised that before COVID era, I think mostly are 45 and above.
Right.
But after that, you're seeing much more younger generation. Maybe this younger generation are taking over their parents' businesses. Or
that could be one option.
Yeah, it could be one. And I'm seeing a lot more young entrepreneurs going in. And I believe these young entrepreneurs are much more feisty and much more forward-thinking on what do they want. So I guess with the digital components that is available for them, they're willing to take it on and basically drive their business. So I hope there'll be more other initiatives by the conglomerates and also the FSI to also provide some sort of funding initiative for these young entrepreneurs. I'm sure they are right now, but I think it's more how for them to access it fast and for them to see the impact fast. I think that's the speed that we're looking for.
And also knowing that they generally tend to gravitate towards online.
Correct.
So to make it more visible in the online sphere.
And they are so savvy, regardless where you are, so a lot of people say, oh, you are rural, you're not savvy, but you'd be mistaken. These people are savvy enough on how do they sell nasi lemak online and how do you make it viral. So, but it's just how will be the financial support that they need. That's why they're looking for.
Yeah, to run the day-to-day of the business.
Yes, exactly.
Now, outside of looking at MSMEs that service mostly F&B, have you seen any other particularly interesting, diverse businesses that are cropping up?
Currently, I think it's more towards, apart from F&B, which is flourishing, I think people are looking at clothes of tailoring and all that. So
that's right. We've had a couple of stories go viral pretty recently about tailors making a lot.
I think a lot of those, I call it vertical industries that they're looking at in terms of clothes, food, attire, or even some sort of memorabilia kind of concept that they can build it up and share it with customers. I think they're starting to have that, and you see much more of a young, as young as 22, 23, or even pre-loved items, regardless whether it's designer bags or not, but they're still making it as a business. We can call it a modern bundle shop, but
absolutely.
make it as
the second-hand economy.
Exactly,
right?
second-hand economy. I believe consumers are willing to be part of the whole economy.
And it's quite interesting because quite organically, as we have wider global shifts towards, big keywords and catchphrases like sustainable business, here you've got smaller players who are, intuitively putting forth such businesses.
Exactly. And our solutions, Sedania, Salam, we have few solutions that poised to be a sustainable solution, and is for a long-term perspective. And we have been in the business for more than 15 years. So we see this sustainable component already as part of our business component to offer it to our customers.
Tell me more about the sustainability elements. You're saying there's 4 of them.
Yeah, I think for us is one of it is our inheritance solutions. Okay. Inheritance is all about sustainable. It's how you want to create your legacy for your future children.
It's not just about surviving. Now it's about thinking about financial and retirement goals.
Exactly. So, like for me, I have a house and I have an adopted daughter. So basically, I'm already started to think, although I'm late in the years to do that, but it's never too late anyway. So for me, I'm looking how can my daughter sustain her living when I'm not around, and I'm planning now. For Muslim, it's a taboo thing because you start planning before you die. But actually, it's very important because
it's time to break those taboos and move towards being more holistic.
As I mentioned, I think you probably read some of my article. There currently is 90 billion unclaimed asset in Malaysia.
That's correct.
Right?
That's correct.
And this is majorly contributed by the Muslim. So I'm looking at how can I create true inheritance, digital inheritance solution that I can create a sustainable impact to the family of the Muslim family in Malaysia to continue living even after the death of the father or the mother or the siblings. So they can still own the asset. And assets to be assigned to the right person. So that is sustainable for me.
Very much
to be
so.
Honest,
and of course, these frozen assets, primarily who will be impacted will of course generally be then widowed mothers and their young children.
Exactly.
Or the growing family.
So just imagine if you can liquidate that frozen asset, you are basically promoting the economy entirely.
And you're basically unlocking what is currently a debt-based system.
Exactly. So that's what we are doing. We are highly focusing on, it's called Jom Hibah, on inheritance. So we can actually do hibah for your house, for your land, for your gold right now, where gold price is high. So how you can actually, it's still sustainable. Yeah, so that's the component we are really focusing. The other component here is basically we have a Go Halal financing program where we create a digital Islamic financial services to conglomerates to offer Sharia financing to their customers. And this is where the sustainable component comes in because we offer a commodity, because the contract that we use is the Murabaha contract.
I see.
So the commodity that to enable the agreement is basically our digital commodities, and that is sustainable. And from a Sharia compliant, it is sustainable. So I think we have established the component of sustainability way before in order to drive the sustainable business. So clients or our conglomerates who are already in a sustainable ESG business, they look at us and say, I like your product, I like your platform because it will help me to achieve my sustainability goals.
Yes, and it already ticks boxes, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those are the key components of my sustainable solution for our customers.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Nisa, for the conversation so far.
Yeah.
What we're going to do is go into a quick break and we'll be back right after this discussing more on Niaga Spotlight. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Niaga Spotlight, still with me, Tamina Kavsji. So, of course, we've been discussing financial inclusion via inclusive fintech with Nisa Ismail. So, Nisa, now coming into the fact that 3 digital banks were actually opened and commenced operations in Malaysia just this year, let's now talk about how to ensure that those who are in more vulnerable groups don't actually fall prey to perhaps becoming more indebted, actually. Let's talk about trust as part of the cycle.
I always believe in, regardless whether you're having a digital bank or a normal bank or legacy bank or FSI or money lending agency, whatsoever, the whole fundamentals here is providing the secure platform, a robust IT or digital banking platform. That is very important, and having it incorporated with security portion as well. And all this have to be aligned with the risk management IT policy that I think most of the world, of everybody, all the countries have it. You know, when it comes to banking services, I think that is the most important. The next one is equally important. Is your product. Your product must be first trustworthy first. Must be have that understanding is what is your product disclosure sheet, what's in it in the product, that the customers will understand, oh, what is this product offering is all about, what do I getting myself into, what sort of link do I have to get into, what sort, that has to be there, so that customers should know is what is in it for them when they want to embark into that particular services. So those platform and product, I call it, these are the main functions that they need to basically establish and deliver. And the communication part of the product has to be communicated properly with certain fundamental words like profit rate, what is secure, where do they get, how fast they will get the approvals, or where they're going to get the money, all that. Everything has to be communicated. So there's no such thing, or all this phishing link and all this thing coming in. So the customers and the providers need to be in sync, needs to have that trustworthy factors to be incorporated. So then
having
people
that peace
would
of
know.
mind.
Yes, that peace of mind. Then customers would know, okay, I know what I'm getting myself into, I know what the product is about, and I will subscribe to this product, and I know there's no other queries onto this product that I'm subscribing to. So I think it's very important on that. So now with the digital bank, I believe it's a matter of, it's very easy for people to do onboarding, and I believe they have a component of e-KYC and how you want to actually incorporate it, you know, make sure that that particular customer is your bank customer. So I think the component of e-KYC has evolved so much as compared to before, where they can actually, there's no how do you say, there's no discrepancies on the application, so that the digital bank will know that this particular person is the owner of the account, or the owner is the customer of that particular digital bank. I think the e-KYC evolves so much right now, which is good. So I believe with this whole concept, I believe customers and the banks will be more at ease. However, do not be relaxed.
Do not be complacent, basically.
Yes, you can't be complacent. You got to continuously look into your system, not to say hacking, but ethical hacking, or a certain looking into it all the time to ensure that you are well protected.
For example, I think these days, Nisa, most of the digital banking users, we've become quite used to whichever bank it is,
Yes.
doing maintenance runs.
Yes,
Is this
correct.
an example of good digital hygiene and SOP, or is it more like an emergency measure when breaching has already happened?
I think from where I've done the current services, most of the digital banks and most of the global banks right now, they're doing it as part of the maintenance, as not as ad hoc basis anymore.
Right.
So I think they're doing it on an annually basis, but I like the part when instead of doing annual basis, they do it on a certain time where you are not familiar with, so that they know that this particular platform is ever ready, is ever secure. So they can interject at any time to check whether this particular platform. I think that's what we have, the providers have to be aware of and have to be ready for that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's not just about, at this time you have to do it, no. So they have to be ready at all times. So it can be done, it can be checked, or it can be audited, that's what we call it, in any time of the year.
For example, it was noticed that before generally festive periods, when transactions are also very high volume-wise, usually most of the banking services, they conduct these digital spot checks or maintenance runs.
Yeah.
So coming into the digital banks as well, right, Nisa? Now, previously celebrated early FinTech platforms, they have also become quite problematic.
Yes.
And now I think the general understanding within the financial ecosystem is that they are fairly exploitative. And financial inclusion, having that account, etc., doesn't necessarily mean that you will then be part of the financial system.
Right.
Let's talk about how that kind of education and awareness can be put forth, because for example, once after you register, you've read the fine print or not, but you've ticked I agree, what should be coming next when it comes to outreach?
Yes, I always believe in customer engagement and customer retention.
Right.
I came from a loyalty background, so I understand how does it work. But I think from regardless whether you are digital native or FinTech native or consumer native, FinTech digital native, the moment they've been onboarded already, you are already a customer of that particular establishment. So what's next? It's like, I believe they still need to do a bit of personalization. This is where digital doesn't really do a good personalization, but I think they're getting there. At least a digital personalization, you know, to acknowledge them. But I think they need to have a bit of curious of what is your objective when it comes to financial. I think it does make people feel good, even though they are just a customer in less than 1 minute. They want, the questions that we ask is that, what would you like to do with your savings? I think there are few indications already done by some of the FSI. But when I say education or awareness, it's like, how do you manage your financial? So that was the earlier part when I mentioned. I think this is where we here in Malaysia, we need to do a lot more work for educating about their personal financial, how they want to accumulate wealth.
The literacy as well.
Yes, how to accumulate wealth, regardless whether you are rural or urban, or you are millennial or you're Gen Z, you need to know how to manage your wealth and accumulate it better.
So that's actually speaking about more of a mindset shift, right?
Yes.
And are mindset shifts possible? Because when you spoke about the fact personalization, I was immediately thinking about the AI prompts and the bots that come in, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It helps you to stream. But are we seeing the digital and banking services in Malaysia being able to cope with the amount of volume to then properly stream further inquiries that come in via customer responses to these bot replies?
Oh yeah, I believe the FSI, the conglomerates already here, already have a certain systems to actually manage that. And most of them are AI in tuned already, so which is really good. However, I still feel that there should be some sort of a human intervention in between to ensure that we are, we are aligned with certain governance as well, because AI is not being governed yet,
Very true.
Exactly.
It's a little bit of a wild west over there.
It's still on that particular ocean there, but it's not been captured properly. So I suppose they need to have some sort of governance involved by the FSI itself and, the conglomerate itself that they have to put it into. So compliance still plays a very important role, so that they can actually manage the complexity of it and ensure that the whole process, the banking process and the FSI process, doesn't matter whether it's insurance or all that, is all been managed properly. So I believe, I've seen it, some of my clients, they're into all the, they're going into those kind of process that they are working on. So to ensure that is very much protected.
So protection is one thing, but still on the topic of AI and decision-making processes, that also means that, for example, applying for loans online, etc., that goes through generally the AI hoop.
Yeah.
So when it comes to arbitrary rejections, often with no recourse, what would be your recommendations?
I always believe in alternative scoring, and what is your, when I say alternative scoring, is your behavior outside of your norm behavior.
The trends that
yes,
you show.
the trends that actually can help that particular individual get some access of financial. So it's not, if you go into AI or a certain like digitalization, that is basically, it will tag that particular person, oh, you're not eligible. But eventually that person is eligible because he has been doing a business, for example, selling cakes or selling food, which is not transacted into a data.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's
so
true.
there could be alternative scoring. So how you want to get the alternative scoring is something that FSI and conglomerate need to find out how they can do it. It could be through the mobile phone. It could be through your social media engagement, through
the platforms
and what that is doing live marketing, live selling.
Right.
So they need to incorporate that component as part of their alternative scoring. So to know that, okay, apart from the digital scoring, I have another alternative that is enabled, that I can give this, or I can provide access, financial access to this particular individual.
Exactly.
So it has to take, it has to meet in between rather than purely on digital.
Fair enough. And for those consumers or customers who have gone in, they have perhaps been rejected by the AI module, going into the alternative rating systems, is there anyone which is already in force in the Malaysian market? And how can we make this much more commonplace so that all providers are aware?
I'm already seeing it, some of it from the e-hailing services or the food service delivery services. And then these are basically individuals that is doing their daily errands, daily business. So if this, and it is creating an ecosystem, right? And they can actually know, this is the whole scoring of that ecosystem is different from their financial scoring. So they actually understand how many food deliveries they do every day. They can understand how many food they make every day and sell it in that particular ecosystem.
You can understand basically
that
your work behavior trends.
Exactly, work behavior, how much they're taking in. So that can be a good credit score already that can be used by these companies to actually offer them financial help.
Very true.
So it's different because they are not taking the salary as normal annual monthly salary with a payslip, but they have a different concept of getting the salary through this particular concept. So it's different. So I'm seeing more and more of this up and coming of this concept of scoring through their behavior or the business behavior in that particular ecosystem. So if you are in a women association ecosystem helping single mothers, for example.
Fair enough.
So is there and they are already doing their home business. Is there any association? I mean, I'm sure there are, but can we qualify that whole business that they're doing from a digital perspective and through their trending perspective, which we can give them more financial means.
More financial means. So that brings me to the next area that I'd really like to dig a little deeper into, Nisa, which is when we look at underserved communities, one dimension that is often left out, we usually talk about gig workers, women, even single mothers and the rural areas, but there is very little focus on the elderly. Now, elderly and poverty is also unfortunately a rising trend. This has to do with cost of living interests, as well as the fact that Malaysia is also now officially an aging nation. So let's talk about how financial inclusion can be particularly helpful for elderly, especially those in rural areas.
From my experience, we have few banks and few FSI that's already addressing the elderly segment already, because they're probably mostly they are farmers. Or they probably own plots of lands and all that.
That's right.
So they are already in that business. But how can we customize the right offering to this elderly segment? It can be based, when I say customize, it's not just about managing their business day to day. It's about their wholesome in terms of their ability as well.
Yeah.
So that's where insurance comes in. Customized, personalized insurance for them, personalized medical offerings for them. So that actually part is the ecosystem as well. So it's not just about financial, it's about how can we give them financial needs for them to address their insurance well-being.
Exactly. It's not just about working, right? They have other interests
So
too.
I think they are starting to do that already, but what I see is more towards giving them the financing and the funding for them to continue their day-to-day business. But how about, I see there's lack of doing medical well-being, and insurance well-being for this elderly segment, and they can't do that now if they don't have any means or financial means.
Very true. And also perhaps digital savviness, trying to shift the perspective from, all right, an insurance policy, as generally the older generation, particularly those who may not be so exposed to what's happening in the urban areas, they might assume that it is still as static as it used to be 25 years ago.
Yes.
So how do we bring that kind of an awareness when you're seeing also digital inclusion sort of targeting the elderly, them having accounts, but maybe not accessing the whole scope of services available?
Yeah, I always believe in creating the right cluster as well, and then make it as very established, because sometimes we want to do everything, it may not work. So when I say this cluster, is that I always look into clustering. Say maybe a certain area cluster, you have you have aging population there is probably about more than 50%. So how can we actually target the right financial modules for them, target the right insurance modules for them, target the right education education modules for them to educate themselves, even though they are elderly. So I think they need to create that, and I don't see that happening yet, but I'm giving this a business opportunity. Yes, why not? To have that ecosystem to help the elderly to to get on with their day-to-day life. I think they need to have that.
Yeah, exactly. Because to be part of the overall ecosystem means not just using services, but at the same time looking at long-term financial planning.
Exactly, and that's where the personal financial well-being comes in. And that's where the inheritance planning comes in. It's never too late to actually plan your inheritance. Because you got lots of assets and all that. How you want to do that? So I think that's where we can come in as part of the whole components offering as well to the elderly segment.
Exactly. Now, any ideas on where Sedania sees further opportunities for Sharia compliant financing to fill in some other gaps which we may not yet have discussed?
Oh, like I mentioned, I think right now we are doing Islamic financing services where we offer conglomerates to actually be enabled and offer Sharia financing. So that's personal financing, merchant financing, like SME financing is still key. It's still fundamentals right now. But as I mentioned, I'm seeing inheritance as that component that is the next big thing. Yeah, because like I mentioned, I'm not a superhero to say that I'm here to reduce the 90 billion unclaimed asset, but I'm here to basically get everyone, regardless whether you are old or young, to understand their asset, how to manage their assets, how to do the inheritance of their, so for future sustainability of their family. So I'm looking to do that, and that is a big business.
Absolutely. 90B, and this was also something which Niaga Spotlight covered, I think, roughly about a year ago. And of course, it has been stagnant in the number of cases that have been solved because while academics and financial experts like yourself, you're pointing it out, there doesn't seem to be movement from, for example, the land offices, etc., where the assets are basically functionally stuck, to processing it into the digital sphere. How do you think, practically speaking, that gap can be closed?
I strongly believe in to apply for the assets to be computed. It should be a digital application, so everybody have access to actually apply for their asset to be somehow to be calculated how much they have to pay. That we are currently, Jom Hibah is currently working on, has already established that. Working with the land office and all that, that's where the expertise of the trustee will come in.
That's correct.
to digitalize this whole land office, it may take time. But we can't wait for that. So that's why the relationship is very important between our trustee company and the land office to help to mobilize it better. Maybe there are, I mean, right now it's easy for us to now send emails and all that rather than faxes. But at least now, if they have a dashboard that they can upload the grant, the title of the deeds and all that, why not? You can now actually do a search also. Right.
That's correct, to just double check and cross check whether assets are. Fasten the whole the process. But it's rather the customers and users actually know about that services. So I think that's where we come in together with our trustee Wasiah Shop to come in and educate the customers to say that, okay, you can do so, you can actually apply online, you can basically, we can help you to check on your your title at the land office. There is accessibility for you to check also online. So it's how do you actually educate and create that awareness as well. Exactly. Yeah. And of course, when we're talking about Islamic inheritance, that immediately brings to mind the potential very far-reaching role which JAKIM could perhaps take on a state-based basis, right? Yes.
So we are working very closely with all the state Sharia divisions as well, so that we want to create the awareness of people know their rights as well, people know their rights for their assets as well, the family members. So I think we are also, I believe the trustee company and us, we are really working, and they already have established relationship with most of the Sharia courts.
Yeah, exactly.
So, which is
so
really
it's about
good.
building it.
It's building it and educating the Sharia courts, other states as well, to how it is important to do such inheritance planning digitally as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one last area, if you could quickly give your perspectives, Nisa, before we close. So it can also be argued that fintech-based financial inclusion, it is going to be perhaps a little bit impacted by the slightly delayed 5G rollout. What do you think is the way around that as we look towards the rest of 2024?
Regardless whether it's 5G rollout or not, I think we still leverage on the current infrastructure we have. We as a fintech company, or we call it digital native, we always work around it, you know, to basically address our consumer needs and the demands, and then ensuring that the customer will actually get what they want when it comes to financial services. So it takes everybody, it takes the whole village to actually work together. That's regardless whether you want to wait for the infrastructure, it's okay. But if you have a community and you can actually build a wonderful, regardless whether you have a super app or a platform to drive the whole financial inclusion, you can do so, regardless with the 5G or a technology. But if you have a sustainable component that you can actually drive, enable that, why not?
Yeah, in your local ecosystem, for example.
Yes, in a local ecosystem. I mean, yes, there can be a semi-digital, it can be hybrid, but at least we are addressing the needs of everybody who needs a financial accessibility.
As soon as we can.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Nisa. This has been a fantastic conversation.
My pleasure. I love this session. It's really, really good because I'm very passionate about this. And
absolutely.
It's part of my agenda to ensure that as many people be included in financial inclusion.
And Sedania is definitely making a bit of a difference, at least when it comes to the 7 million population that's unbanked. Yes. Fantastic. Well, that's all we have time for today on Niaga Spotlight. We'll see you again next Friday with more business analysis and insights. I'm Tamina Kausji signing off. Here's to a productive week ahead.